Yo, yo, yo! Well, welcome back to the Banter Boys podcast. My name is Sanji. With me is Patrick. How you doing, boy?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Doing well, man. It's good to have another Chelsea fan on the pod after like eons and eons. I'm having to always work with Ross, and he's all pro Liverpool this, pro Liverpool that. But you know what? This isn't about us. This is about you. So let's start off with the fan introduction. Tell us your name, your Twitter handle, which club you're obviously representing, you know, the best club in the world, where you're from, you know, which part of the world you're hailing from, and what do you do?
Yeah, I've been kind of getting sick of hearing all the Liverpool talk. So it's good to be here. As you said, my name's Patrick. My Twitter handle is official ShuxBL, SHUXBL. As you said, also a Chelsea fan. I'm actually from New Jersey, in the United States, and I'm going to be a junior in college studying mechanical engineering at Georgia Tech.
Wow, big things, man. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, hopefully it's going well so far. Hopefully it continues.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm an engineer myself, right? So I share like a similar feel. So I appreciate how much of a pain in the ass it can be sometimes being in school, how stressful it can be. But you know, that's why fantasy football is here, to take all the stress away. I'm curious though, how did you guys, I guess, come up with that Twitter account name? What does it exactly mean?
So basically, our league started 6 years ago on Toga, and then we had a bunch of people from our town, and then after like 2 or 3 years, some people started dropping out, and my friend has some friends from a neighboring town, and our group chat just on iMessage, and it was just combined with theirs, and theirs was XBL, and ours had the SHU, and that was also the pro club's names on FIFA, and that's just how it came up with.
Oh,
And that's
fair.
the league name.
Interesting. So, I mean, you're from America, obviously. I mean, I hope you call it football, not soccer, right? Like, we gotta cut, you know, set the rules straight one time. How did you end up supporting Chelsea? Like, tell me about that backstory.
This is actually kind of an interesting story, but I played with Barca on like FIFA 12
Oh my
on
God!
the Wii.
No, we gotta stop this
And
recording. No, go on.
I really liked Pedro,
Okay.
and for some reason he just had a good card, and Fabregas, and both of them went to the Prem, and I can't really tell you like a one time where it was like I started liking them. It was kind of just gradual,
Yeah.
and it happened.
Yeah. And now you're just total blue, right? You're, I guess, a
Yeah.
diehard Chelsea fan. That's awesome. Have you been to Stamford Bridge? Have you been to any games yet?
I actually have toured Stamford Bridge in eighth grade. My soccer team went over and toured. It was a shame. It was a week before the season started, so we weren't
Ah,
able to catch any
damn.
Chelsea games.
Yeah.
We call it a championship game. I'm pretty sure it was Reading,
Okay.
and that year Reading lost in penalties of the playoff final to make it to the Prem.
Wow. Yeah.
So it would have been interesting to say we saw like their first game that season.
Definitely. Well, I mean, you definitely have to jump back across over the pond or
Yeah.
whatever they call it. Come and watch a
Yeah.
proper game. Do you play football yourself?
Yeah, I played up until high school. Now I just play recreationally.
Okay. What position?
Uh, Really a lot. I started out playing winger, then I played some right back, and now some center mid.
So definitely a team player. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. All right. Let's jump right in. So usually how we're gonna do these episodes, listeners, is we have a general discussion segment. You know, we catch up about new manager, new ownership, and that's fairly relevant with Chelsea these days, right? Never a dull moment at Chelsea Football Club. Love the fucking drama as always. But we're gonna talk about how we did last season. The new season expectations, old assets, new assets, the expected formation, starting 11s, the impact of the 5 sub rule, the Winter World Cup. You know my thoughts on it. absolute bullshit, right?
Yeah.
And we're gonna jump into the game side of things, draft advice, look at first pick, next three picks, one or more hidden gems, and then round things off with how Patrick does trading. You know, as an experienced manager, does he look at form, fixtures? You know, what's his secret sauce, sort of thing. But before we get started, I have been forgetting to do this on the previous episodes, so I'm gonna do the social plug. I know I throw in Ross's recorded voice all the time, but I'm gonna attempt to do it, right? So you can reach out to us on Twitter, on Instagram at BanterB, on Discord. Our channel number is 6585. We're also on Reddit, banter_boys, and you can listen to us on anchor.fm, where we have Spotify, Apple, Google Podcast links, SoundCloud, and more. We were posting to YouTube, but I don't know if people still use that. I think my parents use that, so that's why I stopped posting it. But yeah, anyways, let's get started. Patrick, let's talk about the new Bowley era. Roman is no longer here. It's a sad, sad moment for Chelsea fans, I want to say, right? Because he basically changed the club, right? To what it is now. But yeah, let's get your thoughts on that. And let's get your thoughts as well after on Tuchel. You know, now is his first real season, I want to say.
Yeah, so obviously I'd say Abramovich was one of the best owners a club could have ever asked for. So it's a shame it went down as it did. But now onto new ownership. I think for this season and this transfer window, you may have kind of seen it, but I think there's been slightly less big name pull and a little skepticism. But I think they're still doing very well for themselves. I did write this before they signed Koulibaly, so that's also a great signing. But as you've seen, I think Tuchel will have a huge say in transfers. Some of my friends are like, "Oh, Bowley's gonna go sign Ronaldo, and that's just gonna be 500 grand on your wages and pull it down." I'm like, I don't think that's what Tuchel wants. He doesn't want that ego in the team. So I really like how he is a charge of transfers and kind of is buying players to fit his system, which also kind of scares me in case it goes wrong. But I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And he's not afraid to splash the cash around. He's not afraid to get involved. You know, we've seen that we were linked to so many big names, even Rafinha. But Rafinha ended up going to Barcelona, which I'm quite okay with. You know what? If a player doesn't want to play for my club, then fuck you. Like, quite frankly, because I don't. Pardon?
Are you referring to anyone?
I mean,
like Lukaku?
Oh, I was trying to avoid that sensitive topic. Oh my god, we'll get to Kaku in a second, or Lakaka if you are into social media and all those like things. But yeah, listen. If a player doesn't want to play, the game is not going well, he's having a bad game, shoulders are going to drop, heads are going to drop. You don't need that sort of attitude, right? You want somebody out there fighting every second, running every single minute of the 90 minutes, right? Fans are paying their good money, taking their time to go to these games. Like, you got to be out there showing the effort, right? Yeah. So, I mean, you brought up Lukaku. Let's talk about Lukaku, man. What went wrong? Like, are you happy that he left? Like, everything? Yeah.
I'm happy at least to just be able to have a season without him.
Yeah.
To see, I really hope Inter just is terrible, and Juventus comes back and kind of gets their stuff together.
Yeah.
Because he would be a good option to have. Be able to use him and Havertz because they're two completely different players for can run two different systems around them. But as you said, I don't want to have to force someone to play for Chelsea. That shouldn't be something a team like Chelsea should have to do.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, listen, I try to not have any sort of bad vibes, bad mentality, whatever. So I'll wish Lukaku the best. Hopefully he gets something out of it, right? Patrick shaking his head. No, what are you talking about? That bastard left us. I mean, yeah, it's sour vibes, right? He had a weird interview, right, talking about his love for Inter while he was at the club as well. Like, it was weird, man. It was just bad relationship.
Yeah, I'm not gonna wish him the best, but I do hope he bags 45 and we can sell him for something.
Yeah, that's
or
true.
at least he
Yeah.
could come back. So I hope he does well personally when Inter kind of falls apart, but I don't see that completely happening.
Yeah, yeah, hard to see that happening for sure.
Yeah.
So what about Thomas Tuchel? Are you happy with the change in managership? Are you excited for the season coming up? Do you think and we can kind of move on to like the next part, which is previous season performance, right? How do
Yeah.
you think we did? Were you disappointed? We got to finals, no trophies, that sort of stuff, right?
One more thing back on the management. I do
Yeah,
think I've been seeing that he's going to try to clean house, so get some
yeah,
dead weight off the wage bill. So I'm hoping to see like Sar, Ross Barkley, Alonso, and Aspi go. And I thought Kepa was going to go, but I saw that if they sign Slonina, that he's going to go back on loan. So I guess we have Kepa for another season, which I'm fine with. I like him. It's a shame what happened, but I
yeah,
think if he does clean out that dead weight, that is a great business move.
yeah.
But I think Tuchel kind of needs maybe Alonso to stay, or he's gonna try out Kennedy or Emerson. So I think Alonso's past his time, and if we can get anything from Barca for him, which I have no idea why they want him.
You know what amazes me is how Barcelona has all this money, right? But
Oh
anyways,
no,
this isn't a Barcelona podcast. We'll leave that one
it's
alone.
incredible. It's incredible.
But yeah, let's talk a little bit about Tuchel. How did you find we performed last season? I think 2 cup finals, 0 trophies. I mean, obviously we got Club World Cup, all that sort of stuff, right? But we're looking more at like domestic majors, that sort of stuff, Champions League, all that. Yeah. What are your thoughts about last season? What are you expecting next season?
Obviously, it was an underperformance. It was a shame to see all the injuries happen. I was definitely not happy with this season, but I couldn't expect too much after Reece James and Chilwell were taking knocks. And I've been saying this, well, Chilwell was on a knock. He was out for like the entire season.
Yeah,
I've been saying this the whole time. Those two guys are the most important guys to our offense and defense
100%.
because like it's just different when they're in there. Reece James coming off the flank and Chilwell, like we only saw 5 games, 5 or 6 games. But I have a stat pulled up. In the games that Chilwell and Reece James both played, they had scored 16 goals and let in one in the Premier League. And at the time that Chilwell got injured, Chelsea was first in the league and had 30 goals for and 4 goals against in 12 games.
Yeah.
So, not to be too optimistic about this season, but they were doing really well with them. And I think this also kind of kills the stereotype, oh, Chelsea's can go out and win games 1-0 this year. They're going to go win 2-1. And if everyone's healthy, I completely disagree with that. Completely disagree with all that.
Yeah, I mean, at one point when we had both our wingbacks, I think we were in like title contender talks, right? And it wasn't
Yeah,
until we lost them, we lost that momentum. Other injuries started happening, like in the middle of the pitch, like Conte and stuff like that. And
yeah,
yeah, it was just a very chaotic season, right? I mean, we can even go back to the whole change of ownership stuff as well, right? Like fans weren't allowed to buy tickets, that sort of stuff. Like it was just chaos, right? And to come out of that finishing third still, I know, I understand the disappointment. 2 finals, you expect at least one trophy, right? But you know what,
yeah,
to still finish a Champions League, to finish with some sort of respect in that end, like, I'm gonna take it. It could be a lot worse, is what I'm saying,
yeah.
right?
And seeing Modric comes out saying that Chelsea was their hardest matchup kind of hurts, but also it's
Yeah,
like at least we did something. That game was a heartbreaker.
yeah, for
So
sure. Yeah. But listen, Madrid is, man, what to even say about Madrid? They are basically like, they're used to winning the Champions League, right?
yeah,
Yeah, it's their bread and butter sort of competition. But anyways,
yeah.
what are your new season expectations? Like, you think we could challenge for the title? You expecting at least one trophy? Like,
I'm not expecting the title, but I'm not ruling it out, to be honest. Man City right now, what they have as their squad is just different. And they have two XIs that can just go out and just both those starting 11s could finish top 5. especially like their new signings are even getting better. So I'm not going to put us above them to start the season, but I'm also not going to count us out. The defense will be a big part of this, losing Christensen and Rudiger, but I think we still be solid. I'm not going to hate on them. They
Yeah.
both were like world class under Tuchel, but looking back at it, neither of these guys before Tuchel were world class. Rudiger, I'll be completely honest, in the back four, I hated him under Lampard. Like he
Yeah.
looked like a completely different player under Tuchel, which I don't know, maybe he just got better or maybe that's on Tuchel. So I'm hoping we can see the same transformations and improvements with someone like Koulibaly, who's already very well versed and he's had his time around. So I'm kind of expecting a solid top four finish. I don't think everyone's overhyping Spurs. Don't think we should. I don't think Spurs are going to finish above us, and I think we can make some noise around Liverpool because Liverpool we've always really seem to kind of have their number as we played them 4 times last season and never
Yeah.
lost besides penalties, but
Yeah.
never
That
lost.
doesn't
So
count.
I'm hoping I'm right now my expectation is to finish within 10 points of City
Okay.
and hoping it can be some contention, but I don't think anyone right now can firmly put their foot down and say, "Oh, we're going to beat City."
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Thomas Tuchel does with that team, man. What our starting level will be, starting formation, all that stuff. I mean, we need everyone to stay fit. I think that's the most important thing as well. All right, a lot of our players keep getting injured, like the likes of Conte as well, and no one's getting any younger, right? Even with the
Yeah,
World Cup on the horizon, like it's quite worrying. Like a lot of these players are gonna have a lot of minutes, not a lot of rest. Like we're gonna need that depth, right? So it's kind of good to have the likes of like Conor Gallagher back at the club, just a guy that runs like a madman essentially. And we kind of need that energy in the middle of the pitch, right? So I
yeah,
think now that we've kind of mentioned the players, let's jump into that, right? Some of the ins and outs. You mentioned Rudiger and Christensen off to Real Madrid and off to Barcelona respectively. Yeah, it's heartbreaking to see Rudiger, I want to say, especially gone,
yeah.
right? What a character, right? Always in the middle of any fight for us. A bit of a general in that defense, right? Love to roam forward, take a pop at goal, that sort of thing. Christensen, there was a bit dramatic, I want to say. Sometimes he's good, sometimes he's not. So it's all right. Wish them both the best. I can't believe we still had Danny Drinkwater on our books. When I saw it that he would have left, I was like, what? This guy's still at our club? Like,
I feel bad for Drinkwater. He wasted his career, but I mean, Rudiger, that tackle he had against Foden in the Champions League final will always hold a special place in my heart. And also
yeah,
Christensen, I felt so bad for Thiago Silva, but Christensen coming in after he got injured, but I kind of feel he kind of threw away the legacy, the small legacy he had within the last like 10 games where supposedly he was fit and like just didn't want to play, or I don't know what
yeah,
exactly it was, but it was a weird situation. But next man up
agreed.
mentality and have to move.
Yeah. Agreed. He definitely could have been something. All right. Let's talk about the ends, right? I think best place to start. Raheem Sterling,
Yes.
great signing.
Yes, I love starting there. I think I think I'm not going to compare him because I know you want to rank them later, but I think this is a huge asset. Chelsea have lacked a player of quality to be able to drive the ball, beat guys one on one. You can see it from Timo and Pulisic from time to time, but they're just not on Sterling's level. And as an American, I could even say Pulisic for Chelsea recently he hasn't been enough. So I think Sterling right now is the one of the only attackers I see getting 30 plus starts, and I think he will produce very well. I'm looking at him probably mid second round, but he has a very high ceiling, and I'm looking forward to seeing his potential.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you bring up Pulisic. Obviously, you're from America. It's quite sad to see that he hasn't worked out yet, right? And I don't know, like
Mhm.
I don't watch too much of the national team play, but do you think maybe it's he's playing a different position, he's being utilized differently? Because if I'm not mistaken, I don't recall him ever playing as a wing back for America, right? So
No.
like what? Can you maybe go into a little bit about his role for the U.S. national team?
Yeah, he plays a true left winger most of the time for the national team, as you could kind of see, as my friends call it, post lockdown Pulisic was one of the top 10 players of all time.
Yeah, yeah.
So uh, he's kind of playing more in that role. And I just think it's a matter of confidence. You
Mm,
have, when he's playing for the United States, obviously it's his team kind of, not as much now, but especially 2 or 3 years ago. But still, he's still the star boy. He has the whole country backing him. When he's playing for Chelsea, the manager is kind of weary of him. All the fans are
yeah.
very critical. So I think it's a lot of mental game, and he obviously has not been staying healthy, so that can't help either.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Listen, mental health is important, right? We talk about this all the time on the pod, right? Fantasy is
Mm,
just a game. You got to take care of yourself first, right? That's the most important
mm,
thing. But yeah, definitely agree. Raheem Sterling, it's fantastic to see a guy of his quality at the club. I mean, long gone are the days of Eden Hazard. I so
yeah,
badly miss that boy. Honestly.
I remember the season that he was supposed to leave, and none of my friends touched him in the draft, and one of my friends picked him up like 14th or 15th round, and I
Oh
think
my
he ended up
god.
leaving in the winter.
Yeah.
But for those 20 weeks, that kid was having a blast.
Yeah, honestly, it's
So
what an absolute Fantrax points ghost points machine. Hazard
yeah,
was. Yeah, I
yeah.
don't think I've
On
seen anything quite like that. Yeah,
on ghost points, I'll finish up with. I have to say about Sterling, I see him getting a little more ghost points than he did at City, because he's going to be one of the three main attackers when City have four or five on the pitch at a time.
yeah,
And his contributions per game, I think, will go down. But I think
yeah.
I'm hoping they stay around the same, because the starts, I think, will even that out. So
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Okay, let's move on to the next big signing that has been confirmed at least, right? Kalidou Koulibaly from Napoli. Oh, it just rolls off your tongue. um,
so
it's good that we signed a defender because I think that has been the biggest worry, not only for Chelsea fans but for all fantasy managers. Is like, what the hell's going on at Chelsea, right? There's no sort of stability. We don't know what's going on. We don't know how he's gonna lay out the team. People are talking about, oh, if he doesn't have as many centre backs, is he gonna play a back three? Is he gonna play a back four? Like,
yeah,
so yeah, you want to talk about this signing a little bit?
I think obviously a great signing. Fantasy wise, I think he's going to be similar to Thiago Silva. I don't see him hitting what Rudiger was exactly, because Rudiger he would get goals every so often. He'd get
Yeah,
in there, and I think he's just going to be a simple stardom if you think he's getting a clean sheet. Very, I'm just very anti center back. I don't think I've ever drafted a center back, and I start wing backs every week, which is not smart, because I'll start like a Southampton wing back over
yeah,
a Chelsea center back,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
because I love the potential of ghost points when the clean sheets is what honestly you should be going for.
yeah,
But I would say late rounds, it's still going to be a solid pickup, and I do think Chelsea can get back to 2 seasons ago when it was just like clean sheet after clean sheet. So I think he will be a good guy. I wouldn't stack him with Mendy. I'd still like just only start one Chelsea center back. I wouldn't be like as confident as Liverpool, where you could throw in Van Dijk and Alisson.
yeah.
But I don't see him ghosting much. Aerials will be solid, but as Chelsea usually holds the ball too much, I see him probably 7 to 8 points per game.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So probably not one that you're really aiming for. Maybe like after the 10th round, if he's around, you can try and grab him
Mm,
because we will get some clean sheets and stuff like that, right? I mean, listen, not to I don't always hate on the centre backs in Fantrax. Like for example, Ethan Pinnock absolutely fucking
yeah,
smashed it last season, right? I think it
yeah.
just depends on which team you're getting those centre backs from. right? If
Hmm.
they've got more to do, then more points. That's the way I look at it, right?
They need guaranteed clean sheets or aerials.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah, yeah. You need those aerial points, man. Okay,
hmm.
so the next two names that I'm gonna mention, I think, are ones for the future, right? Eddie Beach and Omari Hutchinson. I think one is the goalkeeper, Eddie, and Omari comes from Arsenal. 19 and 18 respectively, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, do you have any comments on these, or any? Should we be considering them at all? Like,
Uh, Fantasy wise, no, I really have not seen enough for them. My friend who is an Arsenal fan did say yesterday to me, he was like, I'm sad to see him go. And I told him I'm gonna be completely honest, I've seen the academy sign like 4 or 5 players this week, and I don't know much about any of them. And given the state of the club right now, where like Cowell and Broha's future is not certain
yeah,
and playing
yeah.
time, I would not like. I'm not even looking at these guys for at least fantasy wise. I hope in 2 3 years they can be, but I fantasy wise, I'm just big no.
It's hilarious that you say your Arsenal friend messaged that, because one of my best mates from Jamaica actually is an Arsenal fan, and he messaged me. He's like, "Yo, bro, I'm so sad that you guys got Amari." I'm like, "Yeah, I totally know what you're talking
Yeah,
about." So this has to be an Arsenal fan thing, man. These guys love their kids. Like, and listen,
yeah.
they've proven people wrong, right, with Arsenal's performance last season and all that. So
Hmm.
yeah, listen, happy if we've got good talent, but we're probably not gonna use him.
I
Um,
mean, at worst, sell them for 10 mil in a couple of years.
yeah, exactly.
So,
Okay, so now let's move on to expected formation, starting 11. Unless you have any other information you want to drop on us.
I mean, if you want to touch on Gallagher and Broha at
Yeah,
all,
sure. Let's go
but
for it, man. Yeah, yeah, go for it.
like, I don't see any of them being crazy assets. I do see Gallagher going in drafts. I think, as you touched on, keep a keen eye on preseason. If you do see any back four, I would draft Gallagher. Still not high, but I would take him a little earlier than he's going for. But I don't see him getting more than 10 to 15 starts at tops. But if it was a back four, having a midfield of Conte, Gallagher, and Mount, I would love to see that. All the running it could do. But I wouldn't touch him too much. And for Broha, uh, everything's uncertain right now. He's leaving. If he may be leaving. If he does leave and can get a starting job, I definitely would draft him. But right now, I would only take him maybe in the 15th round if you drafted Havertz just for like the first 2 weeks as a
Yeah.
safety and then probably drop him. But he will probably see 3 or 4 starts. And if he is available those weeks, definitely pick him up because I would always roster him when he played for Southampton and he has some potential.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, Fantrax points aside, eye test. He is a bully, right? He's got some
Yes.
speed on him. I've seen him play live, man. He's a live wire. Kid is
Mhm.
good, really, really good.
And he's selfish, which is
Yeah,
very good. He's one of the guys that will shoot from anywhere, which we don't really have right now. So
definitely,
I want
definitely.
to see him get time.
Yeah, for sure. Agreed. Agreed. Shall we move on to expected formation and starting 11 then?
Yep,
What do you
I
have for us,
can.
Patrick? What do you think about this?
Pretty dry, but I see a 3-4-2-1 right now. I have Mendy, Koulibaly on the left, and then Thiago in the center. And I think there'll be a signing at right center back. I don't know. I was getting very frustrated before it came out yesterday that Ake fell through, but I was getting frustrated that people want Ake and Kimpembe
Yeah,
because both those are left center backs, and Koulibaly has actually played left center back for Napoli all last season.
yeah,
So I'm seeing right now we'll throw Chalobah there at right center back,
yeah,
but Koulibaly, Thiago, and Chalobah across the back. Then I'm seeing obviously Chilwell and Reece James out wide with Conte and Kovacic, but that's going to be rotated with Jorginho and Havertz. But I will say I'm thinking Kovacic gets the most starts out of the midfield,
yeah,
and then for Jorginho and Conte, can't I can't even put a guess on who's starting more.
yeah.
And I just would stay away from them fantasy
Yeah,
wise.
yeah.
And then I see Sterling on the left, Havertz up top, and Mount on the right. So
Okay, and
anything different from you?
yeah, I mean, wing backs are obviously we know where they are, right?
Hmm.
So it's interesting you talked about all of those centre backs that we're looking at are all left-sided ones, right? Which points the question at Reece James. We saw Thomas Tuchel deploy him as a right centre back last season, right? Now, if we don't get a right centre back, are you not worried now about the points output of Reece James if he's going to be shared, between those two positions of right centre back, right wing back? And listen, Reece James as a right wing back, one of the best fucking points
Hmm.
outputs you can
Yep.
get in the game, right? Absolute machine going forward. But yeah, if he's forced to play a deeper role now, does that affect where you draft Reece James this season?
I think yes, it will, but I don't think this is gonna happen because the amount of center back signings, I think they kind of realize when they're like no to Ake. And I've seen a rumor or two come back up about Koundé in the past day or two. So I think a right center back will be signed. The only reason I would slightly get worried is if Chelsea go out and sign like a right wing back for 30 or 40 million, which I don't see that happening. I know I was listening to one of your previous episodes. I'm not sure if those Arsenal and Liverpool, where the guy just did not rate Reece James, and my response to it was, you've seen Chelsea been linked to probably 10 different center backs this window, and almost no wing backs. So I think that says like that's just clear cut. They're signing center backs. He's staying at right wing back, and
Yeah.
in my opinion, he's the best player in the team on his day. He's just most well rounded. So I just don't see them moving him. The only slight worry would be if it's a back four, but I
Yeah.
still think he's a great asset at right back and at back four.
Yeah, I don't know if that was Ross because Ross loves to push his T Baby agenda on me all the time, saying that he's a better defender than Reese. But that's an ongoing chicken and
No,
egg situation. But
yeah.
okay, so I do have a question for you. So let's say we were playing a back four, right? Where would you be drafting Chilwell and James versus if we were playing a back three?
Back three, I'm taking them late late second. Reece James could kind of creep up a little to like mid second around like 18. Or I wouldn't hate anyone taking him a little earlier, but I'd say 18 to 22 for Reece James. I think Chilwell is around 22 to 26. And then if it's a back four, I'd go with them early to mid third. I'd just bump those picks back around like 5 or 6. But
Okay.
I still think they're good assets because one, Chilwell is on corners when he's played, and Reece
Yeah.
James gets some set pieces.
Yeah.
So
True point.
I still think, and if it's back four, I think that back four will be solid. Tuchel's can not give up defense, so I think the clean sheets will still be coming.
Yeah, sounds good. Um, I mean, I'm hoping the clean sheets come, right? Because I'm always nervous about an unsettled new defense, right? You got to give it time to kind of bed in, let them settle, and then see how they play, etc. But yeah, sounds great.
I mean,
Do you have
it
anything
didn't
else you want to add? Yeah.
just about you saying unsettled defense. It didn't really take him too long to settle his defense the first season because that Champions League campaign, I think they led 4 goals that entire campaign. So they settle in pretty quick there, and that's with Rudiger, Christensen, and those guys were a lot more raw than Koulibaly is right now. He's very proven, and I'm hoping the other center back is they sign is proven or young talent that's proven. So I'm really not too worried about the defense because I think that's Tuchel's thing. He can figure that out no matter what. It's the attack where he's like where he needs to start working some pieces.
Fair enough. All right. Okay, so let's move on now to the impact of the five subs, the World Cup. I mean, Chelsea's known to have great international players, right? So,
Mhm.
are you worried about drafting any of our assets because of maybe this five sub rule, or because people are going to be leaving on World Cup? Maybe some of our players might be going deep into the tournament as well, right? Well, what are your thoughts on this?
I think the five sub rule, I think the guys it's going to affect the most are the center mids. You're going to see Conte and Jorginho getting subbed off in the 60th minute almost every game. So I already wouldn't touch those guys. But if you're going to pick them up for 1 week off waivers, I'd make sure you look at what they've been doing the past couple weeks, and I'd stick away from them a little more than usual. And I still think the center backs and the wing backs will get 80 minutes. And the only reason I see the guys like Mount, Havertz, Sterling, Chilwell, Reece James getting subbed off early consistently is if they're winning 4-0, okay, give them some rest. But I feel Tuchel likes to kind of let their guys do their own thing. I think there will be one attacker, maybe Mount or Sterling, it depends on the game, subbed off in the 70th or 80th minute. But I'm not really taking anyone down in my draft board heavily, except the center mids, who I already wasn't going to touch.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So now I think let's move on to the fans' favorite segment, which is the draft part of the game. The only part that people care about, really, right?
Yeah.
Who's the first pick that you're gonna take from Chelsea, and where in the draft board are you taking him?
As I was a big supporter of him 2 minutes ago, I'm going to say Reece James. That may be a little shock to
Really
people,
interesting.
but I can get
Yeah.
to my next ones all. I'm not going to hate on Mount and Sterling. I'm just going to support him for now. But Reece James, normal back five, just keep an eye on preseason games. My league, lucky enough, we're drafting August 4th, so that's the night before the first game. So we can look at preseason games. The back five, I assume, will be played, and if that's played, I take him over Mount and Sterling. He's so solid when healthy, won't get benched. Besides maybe a couple games for Champions League rest, and as I said, he's on some set pieces, and he gets goals and assists. Like he produces, and I just love the player. So I'm gonna put him at one, and then do you want to make a comment or should I keep going?
I mean, yeah. Who are your next three picks then?
My next one, it was going to be Mount, but I kind of sat down like this morning. I'm like, I think it's going to be Sterling. I think he can be interchangeable with Mount, but with Broha leaving, I think Sterling's value increases more because Sterling saw some time if he does leave, but Sterling saw some time at the 9 for City.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
see Sterling being the backup striker to Havertz, as well as being the number one winger. So if we ever need some time at striker when Havertz needs some rest, I don't see them throwing like Michy Batshuayi in, and I don't see who else. I don't see who else would go in. So I rate Sterling, and I just think he has a very high ceiling, as I said, and could end up being the first attacking name on the team sheet. So
Interesting. So, I think you've got one more left in the three of them.
yep,
Then, yeah.
that is Mount, and I did this rough calculation about 10 minutes ago, sitting down because my friends always are like, Mount puts up all his points against bad teams, and
Yeah.
he has about 220 of his points last season were out of 390 were against bottom six teams.
Yeah.
So that's a big. If you want a guy who boom or bust who would go three
Yeah.
straight
That's
games with
interesting.
5 points,
Yeah.
and then have one with 40 against Norwich, which Norwich is no longer there. I'd draft him. I still think his consistency will get better. I think his numbers will improve because he kind of struggled last season a bit. But that kind of is scaring me a little. And he's being drafted around the likes of like James Ward-Prowse, ASM, and right now those guys I'd say have been a little more consistent than him. But Mount has potential he also has a very solid ceiling, but just the fact that it was 55% of his points last season were against bottom six teams, and there's 13 other teams he has to play against, so that's very concerning.
Yeah, that is a very interesting stat. I'll have to dig a bit deeper, but I'm curious as well, like, a bit more for the breakdown of the points, like, because he didn't see a consistent season last season, right? Like, he came off the bench a little bit. He was
Yeah.
injured for a period of time. Like, he didn't play 90 minutes like he did. Like,
Hmm.
Lampard, quote unquote, use and abuse this kid, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it would be interesting to see that breakdown. But it's I'm I've now that you've kind of brought up those numbers, it's kind of changed my perspective a little bit, because I would have said, like, right off the bat, I was gonna take Mason Mount as my first Chelsea player, right?
Hmm.
I mean, it finally he hit double digits for both goals and assists, right? I think
Yeah.
it was 11 goals, 11 assists, right? Seasons before that, 6 and 7, 7 and 6, right, for goals scored, assists, respectively. But I thought he really came into his own. But yeah, you make a good point that he pretty much just smashes the small teams, right? And if you want a player in the first two rounds, you want to make sure that they've got that consistent floor at least, right?
Yeah.
Yes, you want to make sure that at the end of the season they make like that top 10, top 20 sort of thing. But yeah, that's a very interesting point. I think maybe that now pushes Sterling up a bit further up for me, right? Now he's the
Hmm.
highest paid player at the club. Listen, Sterling has done it in the Prem already, right? He's won what, 4 titles now?
Yeah.
A bunch of cups as well. He's known for scoring hat tricks, which we all love if any of our players can do that, right?
Yeah.
And definitely, I think one thing I'd change differently is maybe I would take Chilwell over Reece James. I'm still a little concerned about Reece James's versatility. I know your face is like, oh my god, what is he saying? But so I want to bring up something interesting, is that, like, if we looked at the corners from last season, right? Mason Mount took the most with 91 of them.
Hmm.
Marcus Alonso with 65, Ziyech with 32, Ben Chilwell 25, and then Reece James with 15, right? Sure, those numbers point towards Mason Mount, dominating, and we know, like, corners is an easy way to get key passes, right? And key passes
Hmm.
is like your default sort of scoring that you want from any player. But if you look at the per 90 stats, actually Ben Chilwell's per 90 for corners, corner kicks taken, is 4.17, right? Then it's Ross Barkley at 3.5. Please don't draft Ross Barkley, guys. And then is Mason Mount at 3.46. So that kind of tells me that, listen, if Chelsea can get their defense right, then I might consider Chilwell over Mason Mount even. Is that too bold?
I understand what you're saying. I'd say it's a little too bold given Chilwell played 6 games, 5 games last season. So,
Yeah.
but the only thing we can, to touch on the Mount, I have it pulled up real quick. 47.5 against Norwich, 16.5 against Leeds, 22.5 against Watford, like 20.5 against Everton, then 29 against Norwich, 35.5 against Southampton, 29 against Leeds. So all bottom 6 teams, and that's well over 200 points right there. So just
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah. That's
reiterate
a
that.
great point. Yeah, yeah. I mean, you want to, if we want to give Reece James a little bump up, then in terms of a discussion, if you look at total key passes, Mason Mount with 58, behind him Reece James 48, right? You look
Mhm.
at points per game throughout the entire season. Ben Chilwell obviously sits on top with his little glorious run of around 15 and a half. But again, second Reece James with 12.29, and Mason Mount behind
Mhm.
him with 12.19. So yeah, maybe Reece then does have that floor and that massive ceiling, right? And we know this guy loves a pop-up goal as well, right? We've seen him score braces in games as well. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's a little hard now to kind of pick between Chelsea players. I think maybe it has that core four that you mentioned, and if any of them fall to you, try and get them,
Yeah,
right?
my only not worry about Reece James, but is he did have Fantrax wise 5 goals, 9 assists. So can he repeat that? I think he can, but we'll see because 14 contributions from a defender is a very solid amount. So I think it's repeatable, but we'll see.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's move on now to your hidden gem. What have you got up your sleeve, Patrick?
So as I've said, center mids I'm not a big fan of. My hidden gem would be Gallagher if they were playing back four, but I don't see them doing this. So I'm going to say Chalobah. So
Ooh, yeah, he's
yeah,
been moved, right? From a mid to defender.
yeah.
Yeah.
So last season he was playing. He didn't get any clean sheets because, as you said, wait, he actually was getting clean sheets. I don't know if in your league too, but in my league, he would get the clean sheets at midfield. But
Oh, I want to join
uh,
your league. Your league sounds a lot easier.
so, but I think I think that was only because Fantrack for some reason would give the midfielders that are listed as midfielders but play center back like clean
Mm.
sheets. So, but he was 9.65 points per game as I see on I have it pull up right here, and I think he will get significant time with the new signings being a little questionable, and I think he should get probably around 15 starts, and I think you should start him when he does because he shows some promise over having more points per game than the other Chelsea center backs. I guess it's only Thiago Silva that we can see translate, but everyone else I don't see being a hidden gem. I don't qualify Koulibaly as one because points I don't know, and attackers I'm not going to tell you go draft Timo Werner. He's going to have a great season, so I think he's a solid, the only person who can see some serious starts, and he has proven to put up decent points in the past.
Yeah, it's very interesting. A lot of players didn't make your lists so far. So I'm gonna do a little quick game, right? Whatever comes to mind, the number in terms of the round you're gonna draft them, and we're just gonna say some Chelsea assets. You take a crack at it, right?
Mm.
Where you drafting Kai Havertz?
4 or 5. I'm not.
Okay.
Should I
Yeah.
say where I'm drafting it or where he will be drafted?
I mean, you could take a crack at both really quickly if you want.
I'd say he will be drafted 4 to 5. I would not touch him till late 5. I love the guy, but his Fantrax production is just, it's going to give me a heart attack if I have him. So,
All right. What about N'Golo Kante?
uh, 12, as I said, I just don't want to touch the rotation of the Chelsea mids, not worth rostering, and there's just not upside there.
Okay. Ruben Loftus-Cheek. We saw him have a bit of a purple patch last season.
With Gallagher coming in, Kovacic being more healthy, unless for some reason he goes back to that right wing back spot he played like 2 games at, I still don't think he's getting many starts, so I would not draft him.
Okay, and finally, your boy, Captain America, Christian Pulisic. Where you drafted him?
I'd say like I'm not going to draft him. He'll probably go in the 13th to 14th. I just don't think it's worth drafting a guy who's not going to get over 10 starts. So
Interesting. All right. Very, very interesting insights. Love it. Okay, now I think let's move on to our final segment. Unless you have any other notes you want to drop, any other nothing. Shall we move on?
nope. No.
All right. Final segment: trading assets. Right. So Patrick, you've been around since the Playtoga days, so obviously you're an experienced manager, right? Anytime somebody mentions, "Oh, I've played Playtoga," I'm like, "Oh, you know what you're doing, buddy." Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So how do you go about trading assets? Do you look at form? Do you look at fixtures? Do you do 2-for-1 trades? Like, how would you kind of
Mm.
advise new managers or even experienced managers? What's the best way to do trades? Like, what's your secret sauce?
I've actually, I'm going to speak on what works from what I've seen in my league, but I've not been, which has held me back in the past. I've not been a huge trader in like when the league is new, like the first 2 3 years, that's when the league is won on waivers. I remember picking up Mount 2 years ago, picking up Alonso, and I could just purely I'd sift through waivers heavily. So if you're in the first couple years in the league, I'd recommend you win your league on waivers. I'd make my whole team. I've never drafted well. Never drafted well. It's never worked out. So
Yeah.
uh, last year, when all of our league is a lot more experienced, the waivers were not where you could win the league. It was trading. And I drafted my first 3 rounds Bruno, Ollie Watkins, and Harvey Barnes. All guys
Oh.
who, all guys who just, as the trade philosophy is, uh, buy low, sell high.
Yeah.
And I had a friend do that and
Yeah.
just made a crazy team. Like the
Yeah.
first 3 weeks, he took Danny Ings and turned him into Trossard and
Wow.
ASM. which
Wow.
I think it was Solly March, Tarkowski, and Ings for Trossard
Yeah.
and ASM because he was in my other friend's
Damn.
ear. If
Yeah.
ASM gets injured, your team is done.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
he
Yeah.
just took that and went from there. He had Mount at some point. He had JWP, and he just kept buying low and selling high, and that's the main thing. And as you said, I've heard in previous episodes, 2-for-1s. If you want to be on the one side if you have a solid, consistent team,
Yeah.
because how I look at all 2-for-1s, okay, I have a 15 point per game player. Someone's offering me two 10 point per game players. Okay, I need to pick up a 5 point per game player to
Yeah.
make it worth it off
Yeah.
waivers. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
So it has to get to the point where if you add the players up, you need to be picking up like an 8 to 10 point per game player to make the trade worth it.
Yeah.
So, but I'd stick to buy low, sell high, stay away from this two side of the 2-for-1s unless you really need depth,
Yeah.
and that's the main things because I think you can do a lot with guys get frustrated. Like if you could have bought James Madison low last year,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would have done
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't trade last year because Bruno never was high, Ollie never was high,
Yeah.
and Harvey Barnes never was high, and I don't even want to get into the rest of my draft. My only other good draft pick was Damari Gray in the
Yeah.
15th round, and
Wow, that's a steal.
I dropped him week one after because I had
No.
Rodrigo, Pepe, Ali, and one other forward, and
Yeah.
Pepe the first 5 weeks. I'm like, I don't need him.
Wow.
So, and I as buy low, sell high, I denied a trade week 5 to Pepe for Bernardo Silva straight up.
Jeez. Oh
So
man. Well, you're,
I'm
you're
not gonna,
learning lessons here on the podcast,
yeah,
listeners.
I'm not gonna be worried about it.
Yeah, listen, I last season I remember so Joe from the Draft Society, shout out to those boys. So I was in a league with him last season, and he kept throwing me a trade of Mason Mount for James Madison, and this is when Madison was shitting the bed. Mason Mount was still doing okay-ish, right? But I think something that kind of plays a role for me is sometimes play too much with my heart, not my head. I'm like, oh, he's my Chelsea boy. How can I give up our Mason Mount
Yeah,
sort of thing, right? Yeah, especially it didn't help that Madison was kind of shitting the bed, but then kind of ended like one of the best seasons, one of the best players in the game, really, I want to say. So and I agree. Listen, even though you draft like shit, doesn't mean your season's over. We say this all the time on the podcast. Waiver wires can be your best friend sometimes, and maybe now trading can as well, right? With all these managers giving you advice and stuff like that, don't get too stressed about your original draft, right? Listen, football's unpredictable, life is unpredictable. Players can get injured out of the blue, and don't beat yourself up about it, right? It's about learning to adjust, evolve, just pick yourself up, keep moving forward, and at the end of the day, it's a game, right? So just do your best.
yeah.
Forget the rest.
Because usually I don't know about you. Usually, even without trading, I usually end up with 3 or 4 of my guys I drafted on my team at the end of the day, which may be an attest to how bad I am at drafting, but that's a test to waivers. So as I said, obviously if you're new, just go comb through waivers each week. Just set to okay, who did well this week, who did well the past 5 weeks, and that's what I used to do, and it worked for the first couple of seasons, but I won the league a couple of times, like 2 times in a row, and everyone started getting annoyed, and they're like, "This kid's not trading," and now everyone's just hammering waivers, and you can't build your team off waivers. You can put some solid guys in, get lucky the first couple of weeks, but after that, you're not getting for sure starters, which I was usually able to come through, and the kid who won the league last year just traded like at least 6 trades that entire year, winning all of them. And just the last 10 weeks of the regular season, because we do playoffs, he didn't even set his lineup. He was just so far ahead. And
Wow.
then just came back for the playoffs and just demolished.
Yeah. Damn. All right. Man, Patrick, this was a fantastic chat. I thoroughly enjoyed everything Chelsea with you. We definitely have to bring you
Mhm.
on again, you know. I just need more Chelsea love in my life, you know.
Yep.
But yeah, do you have any final words, any final comments you want to drop, any info? Are you boys like doing any sort of content? Or are you just like playing in a draft league?
We were trying to post some stuff. We're not doing any significant content. The one thing I will drop is me, the one kid who I talked about was very good trading two others, have a team in the Genie League next year. We snuck into the lowest tier, so we're expecting to hopefully do well in that. I'm going to be a little cocky here. We're hoping to win, so hopefully if I come
Hey,
on again,
yeah,
if I win, I hopefully
yeah,
can come on and talk about that. And
love
I'm
it.
really looking forward to all the different things that can take, and I hope that can kind of get some names out there because some of the stuff, honestly, we see online being posted, and we're like, we heavily disagree with some of this stuff. So it's all up to opinion, not hating, but
Yeah, yeah.
like some of the trades that we see, we're like, I don't think you should do that. And hopefully this season we can kind of trade through our league, buy low, sell high, and kind of make some noise.
Brilliant. All right. Definitely looking forward to that. Good luck for the upcoming season, Patrick. All the best. And listeners, yeah, that's all we had planned. I think now we will sign off. The next episode, I think it might be Brentford. I'm trying to make sure it's Brentford. We got a very exciting guest actually for our next episode. If not, it might be Manchester United. So either way, we're gonna have fun shitting on them as well. But yeah, we will catch you on the next episode. Peace.